Some news out of the Toronto Maple Leafs this morning as Ilya Samsonov might have been gifted his last opportunity to stick with this Leafs team, and Mark Giordano finally returns to the roster. What does this mean for the defense, for the lineups, for the rosters, for the goaltending, for Samsonov? We'll break that all down in today's video. Welcome back to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, and in today's video, as I mentioned off the top, we're going to be breaking down mostly Ilya Samsonov, what might be his final opportunity with the Leafs, why it might be his final opportunity, some things I've heard, some things I think, as well as just some general consensus of some stuff we're seeing online from other former and current professional goaltenders, as well as the return of Mark Giordano, what this means for this Leafs roster, whether you can depend on him, and if this means they're still going to be looking for defensive upgrades. So we'll get into all of that here today, but before we do, I want to remind people who are watching right now, if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video, subscribe here to this channel, and turn on notifications. You get notified every single time videos like this drop, or we go live for post-game shows where we take callers, listen to fan reactions, how they feel about the games, everything that went down, but you won't want to miss a second of that. And by the way, I do know that about 60% of the people who watch these videos on a regular basis not subscribed here to the channel. So please subscribe here to the channel. I do appreciate the support, but click that subscribe button. Very simple, very easy. It's the least you can do. Thank you very much for the support. Let's get into the topics for today's video. First and foremost, we're going to start with Ilya Samsonov. Jonas Siegel this morning, everyone's favorite reporter in Toronto right now, tweets out, Ilya Samsonov will start for the Leafs in Columbus on Friday night, Sheldon Keefe says. I got to be very, very honest with people here when it comes to Ilya Samsonov and his starting on Friday night against Columbus. I think that this is a god-awful idea, and here's why. Ilya Samsonov has struggled from the very first day that the puck dropped here in Toronto this season. I don't know whether it was a struggle of an offseason, if it was just not great training, if things just got off to a rocky start and he just got into a dark mental place early and he's just never been able to fight out of it. But whatever it is, it's been severely holding him back the entire time. And you've seen him basically never be able to get out of it. Even in games that he's won or the Leafs team has been able to overcome what's going on in net, it's just never really come from the hands of Samsonov playing a great game back there. Games that we saw him play last year where he could effectively go in the net and steal games for this Leafs team. That's not really been the case at all this season. Now, more importantly, why I think that this is a bad idea for him to start and get in on Friday against Columbus is mostly because of this. The last time the Leafs put him in against a team that wasn't very good and wasn't playing very well was the Buffalo Sabres, and he got absolutely shelled. So he goes in against the Sabres, gets rocked there, and then basically sewers his confidence completely. You're already looking at a man who's effectively bottomed out and is in one of the darkest places mentally that you could possibly find. You hope that from that standpoint, things become okay, but from just an overall understanding of goaltending and the fact that you need these guys to perform, especially when they're being paid millions of dollars, it's not good enough. So you give him a shot against the Sabres, and he just cannot perform. He actually puts you in a significantly worse hole than you would have even been if you were just not playing that great and had average goaltending back behind you. Ilya Samsonov was very bad. He was also very bad the last time he played Columbus. So I think that this is tough for a couple of reasons here. One, because now he's going in against another shitty team. Effectively, it tells him, we can only trust you against bad teams. The other thing is this. If he goes in there and it doesn't go well for him, this might be the last we ever see of Ilya Samsonov in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. Because if he goes in here against another not good team and he gets absolutely rocked, how the hell is he going to bounce back from that? You're effectively putting him in this game and hoping that he's going to find a way to claw out of it. He's going to find a way to perform because the team in front of him is going to play well enough against that other team that you're going to ride off of it. And even if he lets in a couple of weak ones, he can score more than the other team. Didn't happen against Buffalo. Didn't happen against Columbus the last time. Why would you guarantee or feel like you have a strong ability for this Leafs team in particular, who has been fairly pathetic against bad teams in this league? Why would you ride on them to go into the spot and say, hey, you got this guy who's struggling, help him out? Why would you count on this team to be able to do that? I don't trust this team, I don't trust the coaching staff, and I don't trust Samsonov right now to be able to get that done. So it feels like a recipe for disaster from that standpoint anyways. Then the other obvious part of this comes from what I just kind of hinted to, is that you're throwing him to the Wolves in front of a shitty team, or against a shitty team, I guess I should say, with this Leafs team who does not perform against these teams at all. They played right down to their level, and you're making it even harder for Samsonov. You're basically saying to the guy, yeah, you got to go in there. You got an opportunity against this not great team, but guess what? You're going to also have to play against your own team, because time and time again, this Leafs team has not shown up against the bottom dweller teams in this league. Yeah, they get some wins here or there. They get a nice win against Columbus the last time, 4-1. That's what they should be doing, but they don't do it every time. In fact, it feels like at this point, they do it less than they should be doing it. They do it less often than they actually do it, which is completely pathetic from a team that you're supposed to be looking at as a contender in general. So you're throwing Ilya Samsonov right to the Wolves here, and I think that that's probably a pretty tough situation for a goaltender who just has absolutely no confidence in himself right now. I'm very concerned about this start for Samsonov. I feel like if he goes in here and he lets in some bad goals, or he lets in a bunch of goals, that is it for him. I don't know how he recovers from this mentally. I don't know how the team in front of him can trust him to go in there. I don't know how the coach can trust him to go in there. I think if Friday's performance goes bad, then that is the end of Samsonov. I feel like a better opportunity would have been what I heard Marty Biron suggest, which would have been, and Jamie McLennan that is as well, give him some rest. You don't send him to the minors, because if you send him to the minors and he gets shelled, then you end up with the Jack Campbell situation. If he gets absolutely rocked down in the minors, maybe he's done. And he goes and becomes a backup goalie in the AHL playing for Bakersfield like Jack. It's entirely a possibility. So you avoid that situation altogether. But what you do is you give him some time off. Take 2 weeks here. You've got a little bit of cap space now. You've opened some things up with guys on LTIR. You've opened some things up with guys on the IR. Maybe at this point in time, you bring up someone down from the minors. Hildeby? The Hildebeest? Maybe it's time you give him a shot. Just to play 1 or 2 games over the next 2 weeks to give somewhat of a break to Samsonov. Take a mental and physical reset. Whatever you got to do. And then your next opportunity, you either throw him in against a team where you pull Martin Jones and put him in for relief, or you put him in against a top team. Because how the hell are you supposed to know if you can trust the guy against top teams unless he plays against them? Because right now he can't figure it out against bottom-end teams. And, by the way, this Leafs team sucks against bottom-end teams, so he's going to be screwed anyways. I feel like this is an improper handling of the situation, unless all they're trying to do is just say, this is your last shot. You either show up or you don't. This is a cutthroat business. Figure it out. Sink or swim. If that's that, then fair enough. I can understand that. But if they're trying to protect the guy in any sort of way, I cannot personally wrap my head around why this would be the best way to go about it. That's the Ilya Samsonov portion of this. Let's get to part 2 here. Mark Giordano returning. There's not too much to break down in this, but Jonas tweeting out this morning that practice pairs. It's looking like the Leafs may have Mark Giordano back in the lineup on Friday night in brackets with Jake McCabe. Also sliding back to the right side. If you're looking on the screen there, you can see practice pairs. Riley, Brody, Benoit, McCabe, Giordano, Liljegren, Lagesson, Timmins. Personally, I think that this is fine. I don't really have too many qualms with it. I'm happy Giordano is back. As for what the pairings are going to be, this is probably one of the best ways that you could sort this out. I think Benoit and Lagesson have both been playing well. I think they just both deserve opportunities to be sliding in and out of this lineup. Now, when it comes to Giordano, I think the third pair spot that is probably the perfect spot for him. You're going to limit minutes on a guy who's 40 years old. Last year, we saw him burn out fairly quickly when it came to the playoffs because he had to take a large haul of minutes when we saw Riley and Brody and Timmins at some point come into this team. But you saw Mete and these other defensemen all go down with injuries. Sandine as well. Like, we saw all these guys going out last year, which meant a lot of the workload ended up falling onto Mark Giordano. He's playing way too many minutes a night for his age, and then ultimately by the playoff time, he just started to burn out. You cannot risk that with a 40-year-old defenseman. He realistically should be your 6'7", where he can go in and come out. You can have guys like Lagesson and Timmins and Benoit rotate into those bottom spots with him, where he's not going to be relied upon to be in there facing big-time matchups against key opponents in big minutes on a nightly basis. Put him in, filter him out. I think that you're in a spot here now where you've gotten enough evidence out of Benoit and Lagesson and Timmins to know that they can filter in and filter out and actually be fairly reliable. So I think you're in a pretty good spot. As for Mark Giordano, I'm happy to see him back, but let's not sit here as Leafs fans and pretend that the defensive qualms of this team are going to be solved like that. They're not. Giordano should not be relied upon to be the savior for this defense core or some guy who's going to drastically turn things around. He's going to be an extra help. He's going to be a veteran presence back there who can kind of guide guys and set things right, but he's not the savior, so let's not pretend that he is. I am happy to see him back. I hope things go well for him in his return here and he gets off to the right foot, but ultimately, there you go. That'll do it for today's video, breaking down Samsonov, his return to the net. I'm interested to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know. Do you think it's the right idea to let him play? Do you think he should have been sent to the AHL? Do you agree with me and think that he should have been sat out and just given a couple of weeks off here? Are you worried? What's your prediction for his next game? I want to know all of that in the comments below. I didn't have too much to say about the defense here today, but if you yourself have thoughts on the defensive core as it stands right now, I think myself and everybody wants this team to go out and acquire and improve on the defense. Add a top 4, 100%. But as it stands right now, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Giordano returning? Where do you see him fitting in? How do you see his return going? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you get notified every single time we go live or videos just like this one drop. You don't want to miss a thing. So thanks for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, keep believing.